Security, remove this woman immediately. Victoria Whitmore's voice cut through the Plaza Hotel lobby like glass shattering on marble. Every conversation stopped. Crystal chandeliers threw cold light across 200 faces turning as one. Dr. Kesha Washington stood at the entrance in a navy dress that cost more than most cars. Her invitation lay in her clutch. Her name sat on the guest list. None of it mattered. Victoria moved closer. Silver hair perfect, Chanel suit armor sharp. I don't recall approving you. Harrison Whitmore joined his mother, phone already raised. These events are invitation only. Around them, other phones lifted. Recording, live streaming, the crowd choosing sides with their silence. Keisha didn't move, didn't explain. Her eyes held something they couldn't see. The insult hung in expensive air. What would you do if your worth was denied before you could speak? 72 hours earlier, morning light flooded a corner office 40 stories above the Hudson River. Dr. Kesha Washington stood at floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee in hand, watching ferries carve white lines through dark water. Behind her, 3 monitors displayed real-time market data from London, Singapore, Hong Kong. Her desk held a single folder marked Whitmore Industries, Confidential. She'd built Washington Capital Management from a studio apartment and a Yale MBA. 15 years later, $50 billion in assets under management. Fortune 500 clients, Harvard Business School case studies. Her name appeared on lists that mattered. Not society columns, but SEC filings and shareholder reports. Her executive assistant, Rebecca, entered, tablet in hand. Young and efficient. Confirming your schedule. The Whitmore Gala is Friday at 8. Keisha nodded. The invitation sat on her desk, heavy cardstock with embossed gold lettering. She'd received it 6 weeks ago, along with a personal note from Victoria Whitmore thanking her for Washington Capital's continued partnership. Kesha had her assistant RSVP immediately. Formal acceptance, digital confirmation, everything documented. Pull the Whitmore files again, Keisha said. I want to review before Friday. Rebecca synced the tablet. Numbers appeared. Whitmore Industries, founded 1889, currently valued at $14 billion, family-controlled for 4 generations. Real estate, infrastructure, municipal bonds, old money with new problems, aging leadership, stagnant innovation, mounting pressure from activist investors. Then the line that mattered. Washington Capital Management owned 34.7% of outstanding shares, largest stakeholder. Acquired quietly over 18 months through secondary market purchases and a private placement. The Whitmores knew, of course. The SEC filings were public. Board meetings included Keisha's representatives, but Victoria Whitmore had never met her face to face. The infrastructure deal closes next week, Rebecca said. $1 billion. Transit Authority Partnership. It's their biggest contract in a decade. Keisha studied the projections. Washington Capital wasn't just invested, they were essential. Lead investor, primary capital commitment. Without her firm, the deal collapsed. She closed the folder. What's the final head count for the gala? 200 guests, political donors, arts patrons, old families. It's their annual charity event, benefits literacy programs in underserved schools. Keisha smiled slightly at the irony. I'll go alone, she said. No team, no announcement. Rebecca hesitated. They might not recognize you. I know. Friday evening arrived with unseasonable cold. Keisha dressed carefully. Navy sheath dress, simple jewelry, hair pulled back. Elegant but understated. She wanted to observe, not perform. The Plaza Hotel glowed against the Manhattan skyline. Valets handled Bentleys and Teslas. A red carpet led to brass doors. Inside, the lobby had been transformed. White flowers, champagne stations, a string quartet playing something classical and forgettable. Keisha noticed the photographer first, then the security checkpoint, then the woman with the iPad checking names. She also noticed the man with the press badge lingering near the champagne. Sharp suit, Asian features, observer's eyes. She recognized him immediately. Michael Chen, Bloomberg's senior business reporter, known for breaking corporate scandals. Fair coverage. He'd been at conferences where Keisha spoke, though they'd never been introduced. Chen was here for the society angle, wealthy families performing charity, the kind of fluff piece that ran in Sunday editions. He looked bored, phone out, scrolling. Keisha approached the check-in table. The woman with the iPad smiled professionally. "Name, please?" "Dr. Kesha Washington." The woman scrolled again. Her smile tightened. "One moment." She beckoned to someone. A supervisor appeared, more scrolling, whispered conversation. Then Victoria Whitmore herself emerged from the crowd, drawn by the disruption. Silver hair, cold eyes. A woman who'd never been told no. Michael Chen's head turned. His phone came up, not scrolling now, recording. The key evidence sat in Keisha's inbox, time-stamped and verified. The original email invitation sent October 15th, Rebecca's RSVP sent October 16th, and the confirmation reply from Victoria Whitmore's office. "We look forward to welcoming Dr. Washington on December 13th. Victoria Whitmore, host." Digital, documented, irrefutable. Chen moved closer, camera rolling, journalist instincts suddenly alert. Something in the body language, the tension, the way Victoria Whitmore looked at Kesha. He sensed a story bigger than society gossip. Kesha saw him watching. She didn't acknowledge him. Not yet. Victoria's voice rose, sharp and certain. "I don't recall your name on our list." And the door closed behind Keisha with a soft, expensive click. Harrison Whitmore pushed through the crowd, jaw set, eyes calculating. 35, Princeton-educated, board member by birthright. "We've had issues with crashers, people trying to access our network." He positioned himself between Keisha and the ballroom entrance. A physical barrier. His wife Cynthia appeared at his shoulder, diamond earrings catching light, voice low enough for intimacy but loud enough to carry. Diversity quota's gone wrong, honestly. The security guard shifted his weight, radio clipped to his belt. His hand hovered near it but didn't press. Something in Kesha's stillness made him hesitate. Victoria stepped closer, perfume expensive, smile sharp. "Darling, I personally approve every name on this list. Every single one." Keisha finally spoke. Her voice came out like still water, calm and deep. "Check your records." No defense, no explanation, just 4 words. Victoria scoffed. "I think I know my own guest list." Keisha didn't argue, didn't move. The silence around her created more pressure than any speech could. Guests leaned in, phones raised higher, the circle tightening. A woman filming on her iPhone spoke directly to her camera. "This is insane. They're doing this in public." Harrison's voice dropped to something meant to sound reasonable. "Miss, we need you to leave. Now, before we involve the authorities." The threat hung there, documented by a dozen cameras, then movement from the edge of the crowd. An older woman, white hair elegantly pinned, pearls genuine, walked forward with the confidence of someone who'd attended 50 years of these events. Margaret Ross, 73, philanthropist, on the board of the Met and Lincoln Center. Her voice carried authority. "I saw her name in the program." She held up the evening's printed program, gold embossed, finger pointing to a line of text. Victoria's smile froze. Margaret turned to Keisha, a question in her eyes, recognition trying to surface. Harrison grabbed for the program. The lobby filled like a lung taking breath. Guests spilling from the ballroom, voices layering over voices, phones multiplying. Some defended quietly. A man in a tuxedo murmured to his wife, "She doesn't look like trouble." Another woman, younger, whispered, "Maybe they made a mistake." But others leaned the opposite direction. "She doesn't look like old money," someone said behind a champagne flute. "You can always tell." Another voice, confident in its certainty, "Why would she come if she wasn't invited?" Harrison pulled out his phone, dialed. His voice carried authority and impatience. "Yes, this is Harrison Whitmore. I need police at the Plaza Hotel. Main lobby. We have a trespassing situation." The word trespassing landed like a verdict. 2 officers arrived within 6 minutes. NYPD, Midtown Precinct, body cameras activated with small red lights blinking. The younger one, Officer Martinez, had seen this before. Wealthy families, uncomfortable confrontations, complaints that evaporated once lawyers got involved. He approached Keisha directly, tone professional but firm. "Ma'am, can I see some identification?" Keisha reached into her clutch, movements unhurried. She handed over her driver's license and a business card. Martinez studied the license first. Dr. Kesha Washington, Upper West Side address. Then the card. His expression shifted slightly, confusion creeping in. He showed it to his partner, Officer Brennan, older and more tired. The card was simple. Heavyweight stock, black ink on cream. Dr. Kesha Washington, CEO and managing partner, Washington Capital Management. Below that, a phone number and an address on Park Avenue. Martinez looked up at Keisha, then at the Whitmores, then back at the card. Michael Chen moved closer, press badge visible on his lapel. His phone camera stayed steady on the scene. He directed his question to Victoria, voice clear enough for recording. "Mrs. Whitmore, can you confirm the guest list protocol for this event?" Victoria's shoulders tightened. She turned on Chen with a look that had silenced staff and subordinates for decades. "This is a private family matter, not a press event." Chen didn't back up. "There are 200 guests filming. It's already public." Harrison stepped between them. "We don't answer to Bloomberg." But Martinez was already speaking, protocol taking over. "Sir, I need to verify the complaint. Do you have the official invitation list?" Victoria gestured sharply to her assistant, a young woman hovering near the check-in table with an iPad clutched to her chest. "Allison, show them!" Allison approached, hands shaking slightly. She tapped the screen, scrolled, her face pale under the chandelier light. The crowd pressed closer. Breathing room disappeared. Martinez leaned in to see the screen. His finger traced down the list. Guest names, table assignments, dietary restrictions, everything meticulously organized. He scrolled once, twice. The search function spun, that little circle that meant processing, thinking, searching through data. Silence spread outward from the iPad like ripples. Margaret Ross stood beside Keisha now, a silent alignment that didn't go unnoticed. Other guests watched the officers' faces, trying to read the verdict before it was spoken. Victoria's voice cut through, still certain. "You won't find her name. I guarantee it." The iPad screen glowed. Martinez's finger stopped scrolling. Silence fell. Not the polite quiet of a dinner pause, but the held breath suspension before impact. Half a second. Maybe less. Long enough for every person in that lobby to feel gravity shift. Officer Martinez read from the iPad screen, lips moving slightly. His eyebrows pulled together. He turned the device toward Officer Brennan, finger pointing at something specific. Brennan leaned in. Read. Looked at Keisha. Looked at Victoria. Something wasn't matching the Whitmore's story. Margaret Ross's voice rose. Decades of boardroom authority behind it. "I serve on 3 boards with Dr. Washington, Rockefeller Foundation, Museum of Modern Art, Columbia Endowment." The names landed like credentials no one could dismiss. Cynthia Whitmore turned on her, diamonds flashing. Then why hasn't she said anything? Why just stand there? Every phone camera swiveled to Kesha. She met Cynthia's eyes, her voice ice-calm and surgical. I was waiting to be asked. The simplicity of it cut deeper than any argument. Martinez cleared his throat, professional mask back in place. Ma'am, I'm showing an email chain here. RSVP confirmation sent 6 weeks ago. He held the iPad so Victoria could see. Allison, the assistant, went pale. The officer continued, reading directly from the screen. Sent to Washington Capital Management's office address. Confirmed receipt from... He paused. From this office. Victoria Whitmore's office. October 16th. The second evidence was digital, time-stamped, irrefutable. The crowd split like a fault line opening. Some guests took physical steps backward, distancing themselves from the Whitmores. Others froze in social calculus, weighing relationships, donations, future invitations against what their phones were recording. A woman near the ballroom entrance whispered to her husband, loud enough to carry, "We should leave!" Michael Chen's fingers flew across his phone keyboard. His live stream viewer count climbed, 12,000, 15,000. Comments flooding in faster than the system could display them. Harrison grabbed for the iPad. "Let me see that." Martinez held it back, firm but polite. "Sir, this is evidence now." "Evidence of what?" Victoria's voice cracked slightly, the first sign of fracture in her composure. She recovered quickly, chin lifting. "Anyone can fake correspondence. Email addresses can be spoofed." But her assistant Allison made a small sound, almost a whimper. She knew. She'd sent that confirmation herself. Margaret Ross stepped fully beside Keisha now, a statement made through positioning. Dr. Washington doesn't need to fake anything. Washington Capital manages $50 billion in assets. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone said billion again, testing the word. Another voice. "Is that the Washington Capital?" Chen spoke without looking up from his phone, still typing. Washington Capital Management, Fortune 500 investor, one of the largest minority-owned investment firms in the country. The word minority-owned hung in expensive air. Harrison's face went red. "That has nothing to do with..." "With what?" Chen looked up now, camera steady on Harrison's face. "With your mother calling security on your company's investor?" The question was a scalpel. Victoria's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her own phone. She needed control back, needed her lawyers, needed this to stop being documented by 200 witnesses and climbing thousands online. But Kesha still hadn't moved, still hadn't raised her voice. The stillness made her more powerful than anyone shouting. Officer Brennan's radio crackled, dispatch requesting status update. Margaret Ross touched Keisha's arm lightly, a gesture of solidarity, and Michael Chen's phone buzzed with a notification. His editor, watching the live stream, sending one word, "Stay." Harrison moved into Keisha's space, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, aggressive. His voice dropped to something meant only for her, but the phones caught it anyway. "Whatever game you're playing ends now." Keisha didn't step back, didn't blink. Her stillness made him look frantic, a man trying to intimidate a statue. Officer Martinez's radio crackled, dispatch running checks. Confirming identity for Kesha Marie Washington, date of birth, April 3rd, 1981. No warrants, no priors. Licensed address, Upper West Side. The words floated through the lobby like facts that refused to cooperate with the Whitmore's narrative. Cynthia pulled out her iPhone, filming Keisha directly, voice sharp and declarative. "For our legal team, we're documenting everything." But 3 other guests were already filming Cynthia filming. A man in a tuxedo captured the whole scene from the balcony level. Michael Chen's camera never wavered. Layers of documentation, everyone building their case, everyone protecting their version of what happened. Victoria's voice rose, command fraying at the edges. "Officers, I am asking you to remove this woman from my event, immediately." Martinez shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. His partner Brennan stepped in, older and more willing to deliver bad news. "Ma'am, her credentials check out. Her identification is valid, and according to your own system, she was invited." Harrison turned on them. "Then she's here under false pretenses, identity theft, corporate espionage." The accusations got wilder as the foundation cracked. The air in the lobby grew heavier, denser. Guests near the exits began sliding toward them. Not running, that would be too obvious, too damaging to relationships, but repositioning themselves, creating distance that could be explained later. Keisha's face revealed nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no fear. But her hand rested calmly on her clutch, fingers loose, posture perfect. Margaret Ross spoke quietly to the woman beside her, but the words carried, "I've never seen anything like this." Michael Chen's live stream viewer count hit 23,000. Victoria's phone buzzed in her hand. Then again. Text messages flooding in. Friends, board members, family, all watching the same spectacle unfold. Harrison leaned closer to Keisha. One last attempt at intimidation. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Keisha's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. "Yes," she said softly. "I do." Michael Chen moved through the crowd with the purposeful stride of someone who'd just seen the story beneath the story. He positioned himself directly in front of Victoria, press badge catching light, phone camera level with her face. "Mrs. Whitmore." His voice carried journalist neutrality, the kind that made questions feel like depositions. "Are you aware that Dr. Washington manages Washington Capital?" Victoria froze for half a heartbeat. Recovery came fast, practiced. "I don't concern myself with every fund manager in New York. There are thousands." But her eyes flickered to Kesha, then away. A tell. Chen pressed forward, still professional, still devastating. "Washington Capital is the lead investor in your infrastructure partnership, the Transit Authority deal." Harrison lunged into the frame. "That deal is confidential. You have no business—" "It's public record," Chen said mildly. "SEC filings, your own press releases." But the damage was already spreading. The words lead investor and infrastructure partnership rippled outward through the crowd like a stone thrown into still water. An older man in a banker's suit pulled out his phone, fingers moving fast across the screen. His wife leaned in to see. Her expression changed, surprise blooming into something like horror. "She's on the Forbes list," the man said, loud enough to be heard. "Top 50 women in finance." Another guest, younger, already Googling, "Washington Capital Management, 50 billion in assets." The number hung there, too large to dismiss, too specific to be wrong. Margaret Ross's voice cut through the rising noise, clear and factual. "Washington Capital has $50 billion under management. Dr. Washington founded the firm 15 years ago. She's one of the most successful investors in the country." The secret was out, shifting the balance like a lever moving a world. Guests who'd been filming Keisha now turned their cameras on the Whitmores. The hunter became the hunted, frame by frame, documented and saved. Harrison's face went from red to pale. He grabbed his own phone, searching, needing to verify or disprove. The screen lit his features from below, unflattering, desperate. Cynthia whispered something to Victoria, urgent and panicked, but Victoria stood frozen, the architecture of her certainty beginning to crack. She'd built a life on knowing people, on controlling rooms, on never being surprised. The woman she'd tried to remove wasn't some opportunist or crasher. She was the money. Chen continued, narrating now for his live stream audience, voice steady as a courtroom recorder. Washington Capital Management, founded 2010. Current AUM 50 billion. Primary focus: infrastructure, municipal development, institutional investment. He paused, looked directly at Kesha. Dr. Washington, can you confirm Washington Capital is involved in the Whitmore Industries transit deal? Every eye turned to her. Kesha hadn't moved from her position near the entrance, still calm, still contained. But now the gravity in the room bent toward her like light around a star. She met Chen's camera directly. Yes, she said simply. We are. 2 words, a confirmation that changed everything. Margaret Ross added, voice carrying weight of 3 decades in philanthropy. That makes Dr. Washington more important to Whitmore Industries than anyone in this room. The truth of it settled like sediment. Victoria's mask cracked just at the edges, a tightness around her mouth, a tremor in her perfectly manicured hand. Harrison stared at his phone screen, still searching, still trying to find a way out of what was happening. Officer Martinez exchanged a long look with his partner. This wasn't trespassing. This was something else entirely, and Keisha's hand moved to open her clutch. Victoria straightened her spine, gathering the authority that had carried her through 40 years of boardrooms and galas. Her voice came out sharp, definitive, the voice of someone who'd never been successfully contradicted. I personally review every invitation to this event, every single one. I would never approve someone I don't know. The statement landed like an oath. Absolute, unshakable. Michael Chen tilted his head slightly, a predator recognizing prey. So you're certain Dr. Washington wasn't approved by you? Absolutely certain. Victoria's chin lifted. I know my guests. I know everyone in this room. The bait was set. Chen's fingers moved across his phone screen, practiced and precise. He pulled up the Bloomberg Terminal app, the tool of his trade, real-time access to financial data that shaped markets and broke careers. He found what he needed in seconds. Mrs. Whitmore, Chen said, turning his phone so the officers could see, then angling it toward the nearest cameras. According to SEC filings dated 2 weeks ago, public record, freely accessible, Washington Capital Management owns 34.7% of Whitmore Industries. Silence dropped like a guillotine blade. Chen continued, reading directly from the screen. That makes them your largest shareholder, largest stakeholder. More shares than the Whitmore Family Trust holds directly. The contradiction surfaced like a body rising from deep water, inevitable and grotesque. Officer Martinez leaned in to see Chen's screen, then looked at Victoria. Ma'am, did you know Dr. Washington is your company's majority stakeholder? Victoria's face drained of color, not pale, bloodless. The artifact, the SEC filing, official and irrefutable, sat there on a phone screen for 200 people to photograph, to verify, to share across every platform that mattered. Harrison grabbed for his own phone with shaking hands, typing, searching. His face went through stages: confusion, disbelief, recognition, horror. The filing was there, public, documented, true. No, Harrison whispered. Then louder, desperate. This can't. We would have been notified. You were, Margaret Ross said quietly. 18 months ago, when Washington Capital filed their 13D, it was in the Wall Street Journal. Chen narrated for his live stream. Journalist voice steady and clinical. Public record shows Washington Capital Management became the largest shareholder of Whitmore Industries 18 months ago through a combination of open market purchases and a private placement agreement. He paused, let it sink in, then added the knife twist. The Whitmore family currently controls only 28%. Dr. Washington's firm controls more of this company than the family that founded it. Gasps weren't adequate. The sound that moved through the crowd was closer to a collective intake of breath before drowning. Margaret Ross stepped forward, addressing the crowd now, not the Whitmores. That makes Dr. Washington more important to Whitmore Industries than anyone in this room. More important than the CEO. More important than the board. She is the largest owner of this company. The logic trap snapped shut with mathematical precision. Victoria's oath, I personally review every invitation. I would never approve someone I don't know. The contradiction? I don't know, Dr. Washington. Exposed by artifact. Dr. Washington owns more of your company than you do, for 18 months. Harrison found his voice, but it came out strangled. We have quarterly board meetings. We have shareholder reports. You have representatives from Washington Capital at every board meeting, Margaret said. I've seen them. I sit on your advisory council. Cynthia grabbed Victoria's arm. Mother, we need to... But Victoria couldn't move. The woman who'd commanded rooms, who'd built a social empire on certainty and control, stood paralyzed by the collapse of her own narrative. Officer Brennan spoke into his radio, voice low. Dispatch, situation is not what was reported. No trespassing. Repeat, no criminal trespass. The exoneration was official, documented, recorded on body cameras that would become evidence if this went further. Chen's live stream viewer count hit 38,000. Comments flooded faster than could be read. They just attacked their own shareholder. And this is insane. And someone screen record this. A guest near the back started laughing. A high, disbelieving sound quickly stifled. Harrison turned on Chen. You're weaponizing public information. I'm reporting facts, Chen said calmly, which you would know if you read your own SEC filings. The humiliation was complete. Public. Preserved in digital amber forever. And Keisha still hadn't moved. Still hadn't gloated. Still held that terrible, patient calm. Victoria finally looked at her directly, really looked. And something in her eyes changed. Not apology. Not yet. But recognition. The recognition that she'd made a mistake that couldn't be unmade. Complete silence. Not a phone clicked. Not a shoe shifted. Not a breath released. The lobby of the Plaza Hotel became a held moment, suspended between what had been said and what would come next. Keisha looked at Victoria for the first time with her full attention. Not a glance, not a defensive check, but a direct, unblinking gaze that lasted 3 seconds and felt like 3 hours. You really didn't know? Not a question. A statement. An observation that somehow made everything worse. Harrison's hand shook on his phone, the screen still glowing with SEC filings that refused to be anything but true. Cynthia stopped recording. The iPhone dropped to her side, forgotten, useless now. The two officers exchanged a long look, the kind of silent conversation partners have after years of working together. This wasn't their jurisdiction anymore. This was corporate warfare playing out in evening wear. Michael Chen's live stream viewer count exploded across the top of his screen. 42,000, 45,000, climbing faster than the number could refresh. His caption updated automatically. Breaking. Whitmore family confronts own largest shareholder at charity gala. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Another voice, shaking. "This is all on camera." A third, "Everyone saw it." Victoria tried to speak. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. The machinery of her authority had seized completely. The weight of what they'd done settled on marble floors like something physical. Humiliation, accusation, police, cameras, broadcast live to thousands who would share it with millions. Every word they'd said, every assumption they'd made, every moment of contempt documented and distributed. Keisha reached into her clutch, fingers closing around something. Her expression remained unreadable. Not angry, not satisfied, not victorious, just terribly, perfectly calm. Would you stay silent, or would you break? Keisha pulled her iPhone from the clutch, the movement unhurried, deliberate. She tapped the screen twice, scrolled to a contact, and dialed. She pressed speaker mode. The ringtone echoed through the dead-silent lobby, electronic, neutral, each pulse amplified by marble and crystal and 200 people holding their breath. 1 ring, 2, 3. A voice answered, professional and alert. Washington Capitol, this is Robert. Keisha's voice came out steady, calm as deep water. Robert, it's Keisha. I need you to pull the Whitmore Infrastructure Partnership documents. A pause on the other end, brief but meaningful. Background sounds of an office still working late. Keyboards, voices, the hum of ambition. All of them, Keisha added. Robert's voice sharpened with focus. The billion-dollar transit deal? That's scheduled to close Friday. The supporting evidence emerged naturally, conversationally, devastating in its casual precision. I'm aware, Keisha said. Harrison took a step forward, hand raised like he could stop sound waves. You can't! Keisha didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on Victoria, unblinking, surgical. Cancel it. Gasps rippled through the crowd, actual, audible gasps, the kind usually reserved for accidents and announcements of death. Cancel the entire partnership, Keisha continued into the phone. Effective immediately. Robert's voice came through the speaker, clear and carrying. Dr. Washington, confirming cancellation of a billion-dollar deal requires CEO authority and board notification. You have my authority? Keisha's tone never changed, never rose, never wavered. Cancel it immediately and draft an emergency board meeting notice for Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Confirmed, Robert said. Already typing, the click of keys audible through the connection. I'll notify our legal team and send termination letters within the hour. Harrison's face went from pale to gray. He grabbed for Keisha's phone, then stopped himself. Too many cameras, too many witnesses. Too late for that kind of desperation. Cynthia made a sound, small and strangled. Victoria finally found her voice. This is extortion. Keisha looked at her for a long moment, then spoke, each word measured and clear. This is consequence. She turned slightly, addressing the crowd now, the cameras, the officers, Michael Chen's 48,000 live stream viewers. I received a legitimate invitation to this event. I arrived as a guest and as a stakeholder in Whitmore Industries. I was accused of trespassing, humiliated in public, and threatened with arrest. Her voice stayed level, factual, devastating in its restraint. All while cameras recorded. All while your family demonstrated exactly how you view people who look like me. The words hung there, undeniable, documented, shared across platforms that would never forget. Harrison tried one more time, voice cracking. We can discuss this privately. We can... You chose public, Keisha said. We stay public. Margaret Ross spoke then, her voice carrying the weight of decades in corporate governance. I'm witnessing what appears to be shareholder retaliation against a board member. This will have legal implications. She said it to Michael Chen's camera, making sure it was recorded, preserved, actionable. Officer Martinez shifted uncomfortably. This had moved far beyond his authority. No crime, no trespass, just power eating itself alive. Robert's voice came through the speaker one more time. Dr. Washington, cancellation documents are being prepared. Legal confirms we have grounds based on the dignity clause in Section 12. Keisha nodded, though Robert couldn't see her. Send copies to every board member. Tonight. Understood. She ended the call. The silence that followed was different than before. Heavier, final, the sound of something breaking that couldn't be repaired. Michael Chen's live stream counter hit 47,000 viewers and kept climbing. In the crowd, other phones glowed. Instagram stories, TikTok videos, Twitter threads building in real time. The gala had become the story, the spectacle, the cautionary tale being written live. The two police officers remained, witnesses now more than enforcers. Their body cameras captured everything, official record that no one could dispute or delete. Victoria found her voice, though it came out thinner than before. This is extortion. We'll have you arrested for... For what? Keisha's calm was surgical. For being black at your party? For owning more of your company than you do? The words landed like evidence submitted to a jury. Keisha turned away from Victoria, addressing the crowd directly, her voice clear enough to reach the balcony level. I received a legitimate invitation to this event. I arrived as a guest and as the largest stakeholder in Whitmore Industries. I was accused of trespassing, publicly humiliated, and threatened with arrest. She paused, let it breathe. All while cameras recorded. All while your family demonstrated exactly how you treat people you don't recognize as equal. No anger, no satisfaction, just facts laid bare like bones after fire. A woman near the front started crying, silently, face in her hands. Harrison tried to salvage something, anything. Dr. Washington, please. We can discuss this privately. We can reach an understanding. Kesha finally looked at him, and her expression was almost pitying. You chose public, she said. You called security in front of 200 people. You live-streamed your prejudice to the world. We stay public. The logic was airtight, the trap they'd built for themselves. Margaret Ross moved closer to Michael Chen's camera, positioning herself carefully in frame. Her voice carried decades of boardroom authority. I want it on record that I'm witnessing what appears to be shareholder retaliation against a board member. Dr. Washington was targeted, humiliated, and threatened. This will have serious governance and legal implications for Whitmore Industries. She was building their case for them, each word a brick in a wall that would never come down. Chen added his own narration, professional and devastating. To clarify for viewers, Dr. Washington's firm, Washington Capital Management, owns 34.7% of Whitmore Industries and is lead investor in their largest partnership. The family that just called police on her owns 28%. She is their boss. The crystallization was complete. Power structures inverted. Hierarchies exposed. Cynthia grabbed Victoria's arm. Mother, we need to call Father. We need the lawyers. We need... But Victoria just stared at Keisha, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd done. Not just to one woman, to her company, to her family's legacy, to everything they'd built over 4 generations. All of it damaged in 15 minutes. All of it documented. All of it permanent. Harrison's phone buzzed. Then again, text messages flooding in. Board members, investors, lawyers, everyone who'd been watching, everyone who understood that this wasn't just a social embarrassment. This was a corporate crisis. Officer Brennan spoke quietly into his radio. We're clear here. No police matter. Requesting to return to patrol. They were leaving the Whitmores alone with what they'd created, and Keisha's phone buzzed in her hand. Silence dropped like a curtain. Half a second of absolute stillness before Keisha's phone buzzed in her hand, a vibration that seemed louder than it should be, felt rather than heard across marble floors. She glanced at the screen. Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. A decision made, a door closing. She turned the phone so Officer Martinez could see it first, then angled it toward Michael Chen's camera, holding it steady so the lens could focus, so the 49,000 viewers could read every word. An email. Subject line visible. Reminder, emergency board meeting, Thursday, 9 o'clock a.m. Chen zoomed in, reading aloud for his audience. From Whitmore Industries Corporate Secretary. Sent yesterday, December 12th. Quote, emergency board meeting. Thursday, 9 a.m. regarding Washington Capital Partnership status and governance review. All board members required to attend. Dr. Kesha Washington. Attendance mandatory. The decisive evidence was there, undeniable, sent by the company itself. Kesha looked at Allison, Victoria's assistant, who'd gone completely white. You sent this, Kesha said. Not an accusation, a fact. Allison nodded, barely a movement, her voice breaking. Yesterday afternoon. It's standard protocol for emergency meetings. You're on the board distribution list. The crowd flipped. Not gradually, not in stages. All at once, like a switch thrown, 200 people suddenly understanding that the Whitmores hadn't just attacked a guest. They'd attacked their own board member, their largest investor, at their own event. On camera. A man in the back shouted, voice cracking with disbelief. They humiliated their own board member. A woman near the front, younger, horrified. This is corporate suicide. This is actually insane. Another voice. The stock is going to tank. Someone else. Their lawyers are going to have a stroke. Michael Chen spoke directly to his camera. Journalist voice steady and clinical. To be clear, the Whitmore family just publicly attacked and attempted to remove their company's largest investor at their own charity event, while being recorded by dozens of witnesses. He paused, let it land, then added, this may be the most documented corporate governance failure in recent history. Officer Martinez held up his body camera slightly, speaking clearly for the record. For official documentation, no criminal trespass occurred. Guest had legitimate invitation, confirmed RSVP, and documented board member status. No grounds for removal. The legal exoneration, preserved on official police recording. Guests began moving toward the exits, not running, but flowing, a steady stream of people suddenly needing to be anywhere else. They whispered to each other, phones still out, still recording, already crafting their own versions of the story they'd witnessed. I was there when the Whitmores destroyed themselves. Did you see what happened at the plaza? You have to watch this video. The ballroom behind them stood empty now, forgotten. The charity event, the cause, the carefully planned evening, all of it abandoned. The Whitmores stood isolated in their own lobby. Victoria in her Chanel. Harrison with his phone. Cynthia with her diamonds. Surrounded by marble and crystal and the architecture of their own destruction. And Keisha, still calm, still contained, put her phone back in her clutch. 48 hours later, morning light cut harsh angles across the Whitmore Industries headquarters lobby. Steel and glass, modernist architecture meant to project power and permanence. News vans lined the street outside. Satellite dishes extended toward cloudless sky. Reporters stood in clusters, makeup perfect, cameras ready, waiting for someone to emerge with a statement that would shape the narrative. Michael Chen stood among them, press badge visible, Bloomberg logo on his microphone. His live stream from the gala had been viewed 2.3 million times. Major networks had picked it up. The story had metastasized beyond social media into congressional commentary and business school case studies already being drafted. Inside, the emergency board meeting convened in the executive conference room on the 42nd floor. 11 board members. Kesha at the head of the table, composed in a charcoal suit, reading glasses perched on documents spread before her. Victoria and Harrison sat at the opposite end, their lawyers flanking them like bodyguards who'd arrived too late. Margaret Ross, acting board chair for this meeting, called for order. "We're here to address the events of December 13th and their governance implications." Keisha presented her motion, voice steady and procedural. "I move for immediate leadership suspension of Victoria Whitmore and Harrison Whitmore from all executive roles, pending independent investigation into discriminatory conduct, breach of fiduciary duty, and governance violations." One of the lawyers objected. Another board member cut him off. "We all saw the video. Everyone saw the video." The vote came quickly. 7 in favor, 2 opposed. Both longtime Whitmore family allies, their loyalty bought over decades. 7 was enough. Margaret's voice carried no satisfaction, only necessity. Motion passes. Victoria Whitmore and Harrison Whitmore are hereby suspended from executive functions effective immediately. All company communications, building access, and decision-making authority are revoked pending investigation results. Victoria's face remained stone. Harrison's hands shook. The public statement went out within the hour, drafted by crisis management consultants who'd been working through the night. Whitmore Industries commits to immediate independent investigation of discrimination allegations. Effective today, we announce mandatory diversity audit of all departments, comprehensive bias training for executives and board members, and implementation of third-party oversight of governance practices. We acknowledge serious failures in judgment and commit to transparent accountability. Margaret added her own announcement, standing before microphones outside. The board has established a $10 million fund dedicated to economic inclusion initiatives, including scholarships, small business grants, and community investment in underserved areas. The money wouldn't erase what happened, but it was a start. By afternoon, former employees began coming forward. Stories the HR department had buried, complaints that had disappeared, patterns documented in emails and performance reviews that suddenly mattered when people started paying attention. A black marketing manager who'd been passed over for promotion 5 times. An Asian analyst told his accent made clients uncomfortable. A Latina executive asked if she was really qualified for her role. The stories piled up like evidence in a trial that was only beginning. The SEC announced an inquiry into board conduct and potential shareholder rights violations. The Transit Authority partnership remained canceled. Washington Capital would consider reinstating it only after leadership changes were complete and verified. Keisha gave one statement to the press, standing on the headquarters steps, brief and definitive. This was never personal. It was principle. Companies that fail to recognize talent and dignity will fail to recognize opportunity. Whitmore Industries has a chance to transform. We'll be watching. She walked to her car, a town car, understated, professional, and didn't look back at the cameras. Inside the headquarters, Victoria cleaned out her office under security escort. Her legacy dismantled in 48 hours. 3 months later, spring arrived with unexpected warmth. Whitmore Industries announced sweeping changes in a press conference covered by business networks and live-streamed across platforms that had made the gala incident viral. The new CEO stood at a podium bearing the company logo, Dr. Aisha Okonkwo, 52, recruited from a Fortune 100 competitor where she'd spent 20 years building infrastructure divisions across 3 continents. Black woman, Nigerian immigrant, engineering PhD from MIT. Track record that spoke louder than any diversity statement. She didn't smile much during the announcement. Didn't perform warmth or gratitude, just competence. Whitmore Industries is implementing structural changes, she said, voice clear and unbending. Board restructuring is complete. Majority independent directors, no family members in voting positions. We've established partnerships with Howard University, Spelman College, and Morehouse for our recruitment pipeline. We're publishing quarterly accountability reports, publicly available, tracking diversity metrics at every level. Behind her, the new board sat in a row. 11 faces, 7 of them new, none of them Whitmore's. Margaret Ross remained, now official board chair. Her presence was the bridge between old credibility and new direction. The reforms continued beyond personnel. Washington Capital maintained its investment, 34.7% stake unchanged, but Keisha had implemented conditions that restructured oversight completely. Quarterly review meetings, independent audits, mandatory reporting on hiring, promotion, and retention demographics. Any deviation triggered automatic investigation. The billion-dollar transit deal came back to life, but transformed. Under Aisha's leadership, it now included a community benefits agreement written into the contract itself. 40% of construction jobs reserved for local residents. 25% of contracts awarded to minority-owned businesses. $5 million committed to a neighborhood investment fund. Measurable outcomes, not aspirational statements. The policy memo appeared on screens during the press conference, stark and specific. Whitmore Industries Equity and Inclusion Framework. Effective March 15, 2025. Zero tolerance for discriminatory conduct. Mandatory bias training. Annually certified anonymous reporting system. Third-party managed executive compensation tied to diversity goals. Public accountability metrics. Quarterly publication. Relief returned to the company, but not to the Whitmores. It returned to the employees who'd reported feeling invisible, dismissed, questioned. The marketing manager, who'd been passed over 5 times, got promoted to VP. The analyst told his accent was a problem, became head of international relations. The Latina executive now ran strategic planning. They didn't forget what it took to get there. But they could breathe. Former employees who'd left under pressure received settlement offers and apologies. Formal, written, preserved in company records. Some accepted, some didn't. The choice was theirs now. The stock price, which had plummeted 15% in the week after the gala, recovered slowly. Investors watched. Some divested. Others, impressed by the speed and depth of reforms, bought in. Washington Capital increased its position to 38.2%. Keisha attended one board meeting in person, sitting in a different chair than before, not at the head, but positioned where she could see everyone's faces. Aisha presented quarterly results, diversity numbers, retention rates, community investment progress. Keisha asked 3 questions, all substantive, none performative. At the meeting's end, she nodded once, satisfied, not celebratory, and left. Outside, a young black woman, maybe 25, stopped her in the lobby. "Dr. Washington, I just got hired in the analyst program. I wanted to say thank you." Keisha shook her hand. "Do excellent work. That's the thank you." The woman smiled, nervous and determined. And somewhere in Connecticut, in a house too large for its remaining occupants, Victoria Whitmore watched the press conference on a television in a room that used to be her office. The company her great-grandfather founded. Running without her. Keisha returned to her office on a Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, the same view of the Hudson River she'd looked at for 15 years. Ferries carved white lines through dark water. The city moved beneath her, indifferent and relentless. Her assistant Rebecca brought tea, chamomile, the ritual unchanged by everything that had changed. "The new Whitmore prospectus came through," Rebecca said, setting down the cup. "You asked to review it." Keisha opened the document on her tablet. Same company logo. Different names in the leadership boxes. Aisha Okonkwo, CEO. Margaret Ross, board chair. An organizational chart that looked nothing like the one from 6 months ago. She scrolled through financial projections, diversity metrics, community investment commitments, numbers that would be watched, audited, held accountable. Satisfactory. Not perfect, but moving. On her desk, an envelope, Margaret Ross's personal stationery, a handwritten note thanking Keisha for standing firm when others would have walked away. In her inbox, a notification. Michael Chen's article about the gala incident had won a business journalism award. Corporate Reckoning: How One Night Exposed Systemic Failures in American Boardrooms. Kesha didn't frame the note, didn't print the article. She filed them both away in a folder labeled Whitmore Resolution and closed the drawer. The work continued. Always continued. Other companies in her portfolio needed attention. Other investments required oversight. Other board meetings waited on her calendar. This was never about one family, one gala, one humiliation. It was about what came after. Somewhere in Manhattan, another charity event unfolded in another hotel ballroom. Another woman, younger, Latina, approached a check-in table in a dress she'd saved 6 months to afford. The security guard looked at his list, looked at her. His hand moved toward his radio, then stopped. "Name, please?" he asked. Politely. Neutrally. She gave it. He found it, checked it twice, nodded. "Welcome. Enjoy your evening." She walked past, breathing easier than she'd expected. Not everywhere. Not always. Not yet. But somewhere, the memory of marble floors and viral video changed one interaction. One assumption paused before becoming action. One question asked instead of one judgment made. The work continued. Because power doesn't surrender itself. It gets reminded, confronted, documented, and held accountable. One decision at a time, one moment at a time. One person refusing to be erased. Share this story. Not for outrage. Outrage fades. Share it as witness. Let people see what power actually looks like when it's used with precision instead of rage. Take action. If you manage people, hire people, lead people, review your own lists, your own assumptions. Who gets questioned at your door? Who gets believed without proof? Who has to perform their credentials while others walk through on family names? Write it down. Look at the pattern. Then change it. When you see someone treated like they don't belong, what will you choose to see? Their appearance or their invitation? Their color or their competence? The assumption in your head or the evidence in front of you? The choice is yours, but the cameras are always recording.
At Black Voices Uncut Plus, we don't soften the emotion or dilute the message. We tell powerful fictional stories inspired by real-world themes. If today's story moved you, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for the next Uncut Voice.